The Handmaid's Tale and why I believe our wombs are being destroyed on purpose. What is up, winning team? Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about The Handmaid's Tale, right? Which is based off of a book that is now turned into a TV program, which I actually honestly love, which I'm going to talk about why. Well, I'll tell you a hint now, is because I think it's a foreshadowing of the world that we're going to be living in, because it's basically a world where fertility is very minuscule in society, which turns into a very interesting abuse of some of the passages in scripture. And I'm going to talk about why I think this is happening for us as women, just based off of things I've been seeing, like trends amongst us as women. You know, the fact that a lot of women these days are struggling more and more to get pregnant. A lot of us are having womb-related issues, PCOS, endometriosis, a lot of things. I do believe there's an attack on the womb, which of course the enemy would, because of course it's what God literally created. Our wombs are an incredibly important thing, because this is how we create lives. God told us to be fruitful and multiply. Like literally, God created us to have these. Without our wombs, it's the end of everything. So, you know, I want to talk about that. Now, let's start with The Handmaid's Tale. I'm going to give you guys a little explanation about that, because I really believe this is just the perfect foreshadowing. And I also want to talk about it because the main character, who also directs some of the episodes, Elizabeth Morris, is a Scientologist. Check out my previous videos, which will be in my playlist, but it will probably be the video before this one. If not, it will be in the playlist, where I talk about the sinister use of celebrities in Scientology, for the backstory about Scientology itself's involvement as far as Hollywood. In this, we're going to focus more specifically on The Handmaid's Tale, her, and like I said, this fertility and just womb-related issues. Because I believe it's being done on purpose. I believe it's being done on purpose, and I believe a lot of it has to do with the food. Like you guys know, I've been coming for the food and drug industries a lot over the last couple of years. Also, from my own experiences, as you guys know, I was put on birth control at 16 for the sake of my period pains and all this stuff to help regulate whatever. Anyways, then I was put on all these pills. None of these things worked, yada, yada, yada. It was hell. And then I just prayed one day to the Lord, and then he's just taking them away now. And I've been off of birth control pills for over 5 years. This is going to be the 6th year. I think this is the 6th year. Anyway, and I wish I'd never been put on them, by the way, but I just followed the advice. I was there with my mom and the doctors, and that's what the doctors suggested, and that's what we did. Okay, so let's talk about The Handmaid's Tale. Just for you guys who haven't seen it, do I recommend you watch it? Absolutely not. And it's all based off of the concept of a handmaid because of the scriptures in the Bible. This is what I'm saying. It's heinous because, again, Elizabeth being a Scientologist, I talked to you guys, a lot of people in religions. I've been doing the series of how all religions are evil. They take scriptures and they twist them. They manipulate the scriptures for purposes. So basically what happens in The Handmaid's Tale is we live in Gilead, which is the main of this is in Boston, in the United States. And pretty much what has happened is fertility has become a thing that doesn't exist anymore. Only few women are able to get pregnant, and we don't know until people try, but a lot of people are unable to do so. I'm not going to get into all the nitty-gritties because it's quite a lot to explain, but fast forward, we're in a society now where the upper echelon people who run the system, the commanders and whatever of Gilead, right, and their wives, what they do is they hire women in mainly two specific different roles, one of which is the handmaid, which we're going to talk about the most. And also is what the woman June starts off as in the show. And then they have also these things called Marthas. Marthas pretty much live in the house. Yeah, there's 3 versions of what the women can be in this society, which again, I find to be quite fascinating. So you can either be a handmaid, right, which we're going to talk about, a Martha. So you basically are like, you run the house. So you like cook, clean, do laundry, you know, things like that in the house. Once the baby comes along, you obviously help with the baby. And then you have the wife, which basically the wives don't do anything. And when I say they don't do anything, I really mean they don't. They're not allowed to read. They're not allowed to write. All these things are forbidden. These things are only for the men. Only the men can do those things, right? What does the handmaid do? Well, obviously, most of these wives are unable to have kids of their own. And all these commanders and families want to build families. So what they've done in this society, I also find it fascinating that it's very much showing something that is kind of true in society, and I think would have been true in previous years decades of society, you know, that it's more likely in the art of, you know, having a child. I think it would be really hard as a woman to ever have to tell a man that I was with that I think that our issues with us having a child is because of him. I think it's a lot easier to stick the blame on women for whatever reason. So that's another interesting thing, because I'd like to know, like, you know, because even in the show, actually, ironically, one of the wives, she suspects her husband he's shooting blanks, basically. And so she tells the guard, who's a guy at the house, to sleep with her handmaid so that the handmaid can get pregnant, because she obviously doesn't want to approach her husband because she's scared and fearful of doing so. So that's why this show, I think it's kind of like, it's one of those where I'm like, it's rubbing salt in some of the wounds for us as women, and it's not helping, right? With a lot of dynamics. And again, it's like another tool to divide us as men and women. Of course, not a lot of men, not all men are like the men in this show, but the way that the men in this show behave is insane. Because again, the women have to be all modest. They all wear this like turquoise, teal colors thing. They have to be very modest, very proper, and whatever. Meanwhile, you know what the husbands are doing? They're running everything, doing whatever they want, and you never guess what their brothel is called in Handmaid's Tale. Jezebels. And that's also another destination where the women of this society might find themselves, because the only time, you know, the way that you end up becoming a handmaid is you're identified as a fertile person. So how do they know that? Because you've obviously had a child. So what they do is they take the children from these women to give to one of the families of the commanders and the commanders' wives, right? And then they be assigned to a house, and then they have to do the ceremony, right? So that they can try to get pregnant with the commanders, right? So that the commander and his wife can build a family, right? Now, how do they do that, you might ask? In the ceremony where they, the wife, guys, it's really, really, really funny and cringe to watch. So there's a ceremony, right? And you have the women, you have like the woman, the handmaid will be lying down, and the handmaids wear these big flipping red cloaks, and they wear red cloaks so they look like they've been dipped in blood. That's what they said in this last season. That's kind of insane. Anyway, the handmaids come in and they like laying on the bed, and then the wife is like holding her like from behind, like whilst the husband is having sex with the handmaid, right? And then it's not funny, but it's just like the amount of depth and effort and money and time and just set design, costume, makeup, lighting, cameras, everything that went into abusing and manipulating scripture is just something that is astounding to me. That's why I find this show so fascinating, because I'm like, wow, like how much do they have to read the Bible? Because while this is happening, while the husband is sleeping with the handmaid and the wife is there watching and they're all in there together, right? Yeah, they're reading the scriptures from the Bible from Jacob, Rachel, and Leah. So let's talk about that for a second, okay? If you didn't know, you guys will know this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible to read, like, because it's just funny how the whole situation went down. Because long story short, Jacob, so we had Jacob and Esau. This is kind of ironic, by the way, because I found out as well that actually Leah, who's the older sister of Rachel and Leah, right? She was actually destined to marry Esau, who's Jacob's brother. But why is she now getting to marry Jacob? Well, because let's not forget, Esau gave up his entire birthright. Remember why? For a plate of food, because of Jacob asked him, because Jacob used to be indoors with his mom, and he was quieter. Esau used to go out with his dad, which would have been, oh my gosh, Isaac. Yeah, and as in son of Abraham. I'm just trying to give you guys the lineage, because, you know, I like to try and give the full picture. And so Esau used to go out hunting and doing all those kinds of things, like with his dad, whereas Jacob used to stay indoors. So when they came back one day and Jacob was bringing the food, Jacob says to Esau, I'll give you this plate of food if you sell me your birthright, because Esau was the firstborn, so he should have been the descendant. Esau sells his birthright for a plate of food, which again is just insane. But this is why I say, guys, we need the Holy Spirit. We need God to give us like strength, because our self-control as humans is out of the, it's just not in the room. It's not in the room. And so he does that. He sells his birthright. Just for a plate of food, which is why Jacob then becomes the father of, you know, the 12 tribes of Israel. God renames Jacob to Israel. And then he has these 12 tribes, which come from 4 women. Okay. This is where the handmaid concept comes into it. So yeah, interestingly enough, he goes to, I believe his name's Laban, who is Rachel and Leah's father. And he's like, yo, I seen Rachel over there. She's looking like a cutie. I'd love to wife her up. like, can we make this happen? And he's like, sure, but you're gonna have to work for like 8 years for me, or however long it is. I can't remember the exact time frame. And then he's like, oh, okay, does it. Whatever I gotta do to make her my boo, I'ma do. So he does it, goes and does that, comes back, ready to marry Rachel, right? And then Laban's like, hold up, wait a minute. Actually, the thing about it is, Leah's the older one, and I can't really marry off Rachel without Leah being married off first, because it doesn't work like that, because Leah's the eldest. So then he marries Leah, but he still wants Rachel. So he's like, what do I gotta do to get Rachel then? What do I gotta do to get Rachel? So then he's like, well, you're gonna need to work again. And then he does, and then he ends up with both of them. Now, this is where it gets interesting, right? Because this is all in the Bible. This is all in Genesis. I'm just summarizing this for you. He gets it. So he now is like with both of them, right? Oh, what a hard life, you know? So, and they had both had handmaids, okay? This is where the handmaid thing comes into it. And pretty much what ends up happening is that as Jacob is with these women, Rachel is barren. She's not able to have kids. But Leah, she's popping babies. She had Reuben, the firstborn. She had Levi, the tribes of Levite, with the priesthood tribe, where Moses was a Levite, Joshua was a Levite, always the priesthood tribe, because, you know, God has his order. So the different tribes, they all had their different things. And then Judah, she also had, Judah being the descendant of the ancestor of David, who then is the ancestor of Mary, who's just how Jesus is the tribe of Judah, the lion of the tribe of Judah, right? So this is how this all works together. I hope we're all following. Anyways, so he goes, so she's all popping babies. She's all popped out 4 babies, and Rachel's just looking at it like, what the hell on, right? And all this stuff. And then, so Rachel's like, right. Jacob, I can't see her have another baby again. And we're not having one. Listen, take my servant and impregnate her so we can have a baby, because I don't have a baby. And that's what he did. So he ends up having babies with the servant. And then, you know, so all of these 12 tribes of Israel, and then also Leah has one, and then there's this whole back and forth of like him having kids with all of them. So these 12 tribes of Israel came from all these like 4 women. I just like to add to the interest of it all. And I find it fascinating that in the midst of all of this, God still made it so that Leah, like, he still followed the tradition of the order that Leah, as the eldest, who should have been the wife of Esau, who would have been the birthright, she was the one to have, like I said, Levi, the priesthood tribe, Judah. You know what I mean? The tribe that Jesus would come from. So like there's this just descendants of lineage in an orderly fashion. Find that quite fascinating. And also it was actually God who was playing the switches, by the way, of barren and not fertile, whatever. This is why I honestly don't really care again, because I'm like, look, if the Lord wants me to get pregnant, doesn't matter what the world is doing, doesn't matter what I've done to my body, he gonna make it happen. So that's why I'm like, listen, God is just the solution to everything. But I'm making this video for the sake of the greater world at large, because I want to see everybody win. I don't think people understand. So anyway, this is the passage they read in the Handmaid's Tale. This bit about, and then Jacob took, and then Rachel was unable to bear a child. And so Jacob took her handmaid. And this is what they're reading while they're having sex, guys. It's actually the funniest thing ever. It's the funny, like, it's not funny. Like I said, it's just the dedication to have put together this whole operation, this whole thing. How many times have these guys had to read the scriptures, writing the scripts, doing all of this just to do this? It's insane. So, and I must also add that the handmaids were also like beaten, abused, raped by these men as well. They were very horrible. And also the women and the Jezebels. In fact, the only women who actually got off good in this society in Gilead was the Marthas, because all they had to do was just cook, clean, look after the house. They couldn't marry anybody. They couldn't leave. But heck, they had more rights than the handmaids. They, you know, they had more, arguably more rights than the wives, because the wives are called the wives, but for what reason? They can't even read, they can't even write, they can't even literally do anything. So that's what they do, right? And so this whole show, and that's how they have their kids. So it's kind of heinous. And I'm not going to get further into the details of the show because it's not so important, although I have so much to say about so much about it. I find it fascinating, first of all, that Elizabeth Morris, who is, again, plays June, the first handmaid, the main character, she's then later in the show, she's no longer a handmaid. It's a whole big story of what happens. I won't get into it. And I also don't recommend you watch it, you guys. But I find it fascinating that she's a Scientologist, because as a Christian person, oh gosh, I don't mean Christian, sorry, as a Holy Spirit-filled, Bible-believing follower of Jesus Christ. I have to say that because Christian is a loaded term these days. I could never act in a film like that. That's my point about her, first and foremost. And that's where, again, I say that Scientology is just fake. And like I was saying, all religions are evil, because it's just like, you don't have to believe in it. It's very like, I could never, as I am, play that character for TV, because why am I going to help to reinstate all the trauma that women have faced at the hands of men? Why am I going to use something that is abusing, manipulating, and twisting scripture? In my opinion, I couldn't represent that. So that just goes to say a lot about Elizabeth Morris, and also goes to say a lot about Scientology, that Scientology really is just whatever you want it to be, as long as you're spending money here and as long as you become enslaved to us and we get to control you and manipulate you. She's probably just used to it. Honestly, I'm surprised that she didn't notice the parallels between the character she was playing and the religion she belongs to. Having said that, on the note of the womb, so you guys, I've been noticing, like I said, over the years, this trend, and I do believe a lot of it's to do with the food, because I know that the food standards are slipping. One thing I've noticed in the United Kingdoms, where I currently reside, is that ever since Brexit, obviously we've been having a lot more foods from America. Let's put it like that. I'm just going to get to the point. The food standards have dropped over here. Okay? The food standards have dropped, and I can feel it in my own body. I can feel it in my own body. I can see it around. And I'm just noticing that as time goes on, as food is more processed, we're doing this, we're doing that. Nowadays, it's all, oh, yeah, go vegan, go vegan. So we can give you products we made in the lab. You know what I mean? Now, in the UK, for example, wheat, which again, a lot of people are going gluten-free and celiac. I wonder freaking why. Why did we even start eating so much of those things? Oh, because a couple of decades ago, some people realized, oh, wheat is a really cheap and crop for us to grow. Let's make breakfast the most important meal of the day. Let's create all these cereals and all these breads and all these things, and let's get people hooked right on this, because it's just basically sugar, right? And then obviously whatever, now the wheat in the United Kingdoms recently has been, it's by law, all wheat has to be fortified, which again sounds like a good idea. Oh, we're making sure that we add extra vitamins and minerals, but why can't we leave things the way God intended? Why can't we just curate the ground to do better? But like, you know what I mean? Why do we have to add things to everything? There's always just these additives and things, and they always do it in the guise of, oh, this is supposed to be good for you. When in reality, it's just a benefit for them somehow, right? And again, I think a lot of this is to do with killing. I'm not just saying just the wheat and stuff. I think it's across the board with a lot of different things. And this is happening. It doesn't surprise me that as our eating habits, our quality of food, as things become more and more processed, is changing, all of a sudden, it makes perfect sense to me that this is what the devil would be wanting to do, because I kind of was like, okay, I know he's trying to kill us, but he's not just trying to kill us. He's trying to prevent us from not just from living long or living well, but also from creating life. And hence, of course, it's almost like I should have seen this coming. Of course, he would attack the place that God created within us as women to procreate, and that would be our wombs. And that's why I will sit here and tell you guys, I truly believe that it's being done on purpose, that us as women, our wombs are under attack, and a lot of it is coming straight from the food. And that's why a lot of women people are going into different diets, becoming intolerant to lots of different things. We're having all these different womb related problems. You know, once upon a time, it was rare to hear of somebody with endometriosis. It was rare to hear of somebody with PCOS. It was not easy for people to get pregnant, but easier. Now all I'm hearing is IVF journeys. Oh, we've been trying for years. And and it's all these womb related issues. And I'm like, that actually makes perfect sense. And that's why I believe that that's what's happening, because I believe that's what's happening anyways, like that, not just with the wombs. This is just what we're talking about in this particular video. And that's why I was saying to you guys about the Handmaid's Tale. And I wanted to tell you, because I feel like it's kind of a tale of the future, right? Of like, one day fertility is not going to be the way we're headed. It's going to become like the new diamond. You know what I mean? It's going to become like the new diamond, the new thing that people seek out. You know, people are probably going to be in relationships having to get people to do fertility tests just to see if they want to get married, to make sure they can have kids. You know what I'm saying? And all this stuff, because the way, and this is why I don't take lightly, guys, to the state of the world. And when I'm telling you guys about what I think about the food and this and that, I'm not trying to judge anybody. I'm not trying to say it's easy. Of course, eating properly and doing the right thing is expensive now. It wouldn't be, again, if we were living the way God intended. Again, even as he did with the 12 tribes of Israel, they all had their own skills. They all had their different things they brought to the village, to the team. And so if everybody does their job, we could essentially all live for free, because everybody has a different role in it. Everybody has a different thing that they're good at, you know. Even in the Bible, you know, Jesus was a carpenter. Paul was a tent maker. I don't know if you guys knew that, but he used to make tents. At some point in his ministry, he talks about how he has to go off. He didn't really scold the church, but he kind of just said to them, like, yo, sorry guys, I can't come because I got to go and work for a little bit. And he went with somebody else to go and work building tents, because he was like, because I ain't getting money from nowhere, and you for sure are not supporting, helping at all. Not to say that they needed to pay him, but other churches, you know, like I've always said to you guys, I think obviously, again, modern church, modern society, modern church has ruined this whole concept, because now we have these greedy leaders at the top who are taking all this money. I've always said, if something provides you with value, why would you not want to part with some of your money to support it? But I do appreciate that right now the climate in the church is not really valuable, and the money isn't going to what it needs to go to. So I can appreciate that. But, you know, so, you know, people, it's all a group project. Because think, if you got one of them, you got Peter, who knows how to catch fish, right? You got Jesus, who knows how to be a carpenter. You got Paul, who knows how to build a tent. We're halfway there with the basics of life we need. We got the shelter. We've got somebody who can build every type of thing that we need to be built out of wood. We've got somebody that can go and catch us food. Like, it's a win-win. Jesus could probably use the leftovers of his carpentry and whatever to build a fire. Also, isn't it crazy that we're a world that killed Jesus on the cross after he literally was working with wood? That's crazy. That's actually crazy. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Even just those three, I can't remember the jobs of everybody else. Oh yeah, Luke was a physician, right? He was like a doctor. So you see that even within themselves, they had so much like that they could work with together, you know, just amongst themselves, and they're living off of the land and what God created and everything. But anyways, nevertheless, I'm going to leave that there, you guys. I do think they're destroying our wombs on purpose. I think that this whole Gilead and the Handmaid's Tale is a foreshadowing of what's going to come. And again, it's just going to be another excuse for power and a way to take advantage. Because in the show, it's terrifying when you see the first few episodes where the main character, her husband and their daughter literally are just out somewhere trying to run away, because they're just because once the people gain enough power, they just come and tear those kids away. They just come and tear those kids away from their families, and there's like nothing you can do. So even actually I won't say how it ended in case, actually no, I'm going to say, even by the end of this latest season 4, they still haven't got their daughter back. She's still living with one of these commanders, right? And she's about to start going through the training that she has to go through so that she can be a good woman and a good wife one day for somebody. Right, which again, they start doing at quite a young age, because of course it's all very heinous, it's all very predatorial, and I just find it fascinating that Elizabeth is working in a show that literally depicts exactly the kind of cult she's involved in, and a lot of these religions. I just find that quite rather ironic, but also I think it's a cautionary tale to us all. Like, especially like we really need to think about what is affecting us and why things are happening. Like, everyone's so quick to just say, "Oh, got diagnosed with this, diagnosed with that, this, but we're not doing enough of the why. Excuse me. And then a lot of times when people like myself try to say, hey, maybe we should look at all the variables here, one of which could actually be the food, the medicine that we're ingesting, I look like the crazy one. But it's like, but what if our technology is so good, why are we getting sicker? If our technology is so good and we move so forward and everything's so good for us and the FDA is so trustworthy and the governments and everything, then why are we developing more and more things that we have to manage? Why is everybody on so much medication? Why are we struggling with these basic things that God literally created in us? I, as a woman, are born with the ability to create a life. And now, because of God knows what, right? There's all these issues that people are having. And I'll finish with this thought, because there was one girl who I used to watch, right? Her name's Sarah's Day. You could check her out. She's an Australian girl. I've watched her for years. And I remember when she first started out her channel, when I first got to, well, not when she started out, when she first started, but when I first started watching her, I remember in her videos, she used to show herself, she had just been through a breakup. She was going snowboarding. She had severe acne. She decided she was going to adopt a very heavily paleo diet, right? And she'd also been told by the doctors that she had SIN3, which is basically like a kind of womb-related disease that's like one stage away from like ovarian cancer. She basically had been told that by the doctors. Anywho, she decided she was going to try a more like holistic method to heal her body, because there wasn't a lot. They you know, the doctors, they're not really good at giving good news. They don't really give good news, and it's also not in their best interest, because they kind of want an excuse to be able to do stuff and make money. And so she decided she was going to try, you know, she developed a paleo diet, which I think her diet is the closest diet to like what I think people should actually eat like. It's not super V. It's very whole food based, basically whole foods. She starts off with most foods in their natural form that they would be in the ground, or the animals as they are and whatever, and then just puts it all together. Fast forward, she's now married with 3 children. They told her she's probably never going to ever have kids. The first kid that she had by accident, because she'd been convinced by the doctors that she couldn't get pregnant. And so obviously her and her husband didn't think anything of it. They're just like, oh, okay, she's going to get pregnant anyway. Like, this isn't an option for her. She'd already given up. She changed her diet, and I watched this whole thing. And I know for myself, because I know even myself, my own health, my skin, my hair, my nails are suffering at the moment. Even my womb related issues. They all improve when I improve my diet. And my diet, simply put, is just eating foods eating the things that God created the way, and finding them where and how God created them. That's the only thing I would say. And then just doing whatever with that. And so, yeah, I've seen it, I've experienced it, I felt it. Like I said, a lot of these medications, these birth controls, this and that, they change our brain chemistry. I've definitely changed a lot since coming off of birth control myself. It's not good for you. A lot of these medications, no one talks about the fact that a lot of these medications, like these morning after pills, or what do they call it in America? What do you guys call it over there? What's it called? Oh, what's the name? Oh my gosh, hold on a minute. I have to think about it. Plan B. It's called Plan B. I had to literally Google it to find out, because I couldn't remember. But yeah, Plan B, right? These medications, and I tell you, they are really bad for your womb. Like, they're very, very bad for it. Like, that's why in this country, like in the beginning, I remember, I don't know if they're still as strict with it. Like, you would have to actually speak with a pharmacist. You're only allowed to take one because of how violent that they actually are, like for your womb. So these are a lot of little things that we're doing that might seem like all fun and games in the time. But then when it now comes down to now you actually want to settle down, now you actually do want to have a kid, you've been destroying your womb along the way with all these contraceptive medications, all of this flipping bad food, the Plan B, the morning after pill, all of that stuff. It's not good. It's destroying our wombs. And then we wake up with these womb-related issues, and we're like, oh, I wonder where they came from. Guys, can we wake up? Anyways, I'm going to leave that there. I've been talking long enough. I'm going to get my butt outside because I've been talking for hours, so I need some fresh air. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and everything. Like, check all the videos out. I've uploaded quite a few videos today. And I'm just trying to help you guys. Like, I'm trying to tell you guys, I'm trying to help y'all. I'm trying to help us, because you know what's funny about life? The crazy thing about life is that when things happen, right? If a lot of things, in the hindsight, as they say, hindsight is 20/20. It's all fun and games, a lot of things in the moment. And if we knew the long-term costs, we wouldn't do a lot of things we're doing now. So rather than us always having to learn after the fact when it's too late, I'm really trying my best as much as I can to learn ahead of time so I can be preventative, rather than just having to deal with the situation later on. A lot of things don't seem like a big deal until they become one. So all I'm saying, I'm not saying that I know everything about everything. I'm just saying, let's wise up. Let's actually like pay attention, because it would be sad for me to hear for any of you, or for anyone, that you finally get to that place in life. You want to have a child, you can't, or for us to find ourselves in a society like Gilead. And on that note, if life's a game, let's play to win. God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in my next one.